Hi, Haunted Family. Welcome back to another episode. If you like what you've been hearing, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give me a thumbs up. And while you're at it, tell your friends about us. Now, the main Haunted Family podcast will be taking the rest of the year off and will be coming back fresh in the new year. My recording partner / sister is swamped with work right now, but the YouTube channel will not be going anywhere. I will still be recording and posting weekly. So, sit back and enjoy the show. Story 1. The Old Me. I was staying in a motel off some dirt road in Missouri when I encountered the ghost of myself from a past life. It was around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was watching TV when I heard a very strange sound, unlike any sound I'd heard before, coming from the bathroom. So, of course, I got up to investigate. Upon entering the bathroom, I found nothing. However, as I was turning to leave, I caught my reflection in the mirror. Only, it wasn't me. It had a very uncanny resemblance to me, but it was definitely not me. It's very hard to describe, but the best way I can put it is that I could see myself, my real reflection, yet over my reflection was another, translucent reflection that I could see almost as perfectly as my own reflection in any other mirror. So it was as if this reflection and my own were in the exact same space as each other, yet I could discern them both from each other. I stared in a terrified amazement at this other reflection. It looked very much like me, only it was just a tad bit taller, and it had a beard. And it was wearing a blue, army-style uniform. And as I stared at it, I felt extremely cold. Gazing to this reflection, I somehow knew that it was myself that I was looking at. That this was the ghost of myself from a past life. After 3 minutes of just staring at it, I heard what sounded like a very faint gunshot, and it felt like a very small rock hit me in the chest. I stumbled back, not expecting something like that to happen, and then the reflection vanished, leaving my normal reflection in the mirror. My only guess is that, in the past life, I served in the Union Army, possibly in the Civil War, and was shot in the chest in a skirmish or battle that must have taken place somewhere near that motel. Story 2. The Scarlet Woman. I was on a family vacation in the northern part of Arizona, where it's a tad bit cooler, with more trees and mountains. We were spending time camping, and one night I decided to wander off on my own. I always liked to wander off alone because I was a wild child that always sought adventure in the great wide somewhere. My parents had forbidden me to, but they were asleep so they wouldn't know. It was about 12 a.m. when I saw the strangest thing while wandering around in the tree-filled area. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. Even to this day, I can still vividly remember this encounter. What I saw was something solid, but yet still transparent. What I felt was something friendly, yet angry. What I smelt was something lovely, but decaying. What I heard was something beautiful, like the sound of a harp. But yet, at the same time, something as creepy as an old pipe organ. It was a very confusing experience. When I first saw this, it had its back to me. What I saw was a lady for sure, with hair of gold, who wore a long red gown. The gown was as red as blood. She wore black gloves, as black as coal, and black boots as well. From the back, she looked so lovely, so beautiful, so perfect. I thought what I was feeling at that moment was love. But the moment she turned around, I nearly took a dump in my pants. Love changed quickly to fear. This lady had no face. She looked like a faceless witch. I'm pretty sure she probably was one. After she turned around and started walking towards me, she started to sing, "Give me back my face," over and over and over. Give me back my face. As if those were her only words she knew. Her voice was so angelic. But I just turned around and ran. I ran so fast that night. Faster than I've ever ran before. I swear, I wouldn't even have a shadow from the speed I ran. I just closed my eyes and ran. I yelled too. And when I opened my eyes, I noticed I'd never moved. I was still in that very same spot where I was. And there she stood, right in front of me. My head was up to her chest at that moment, and all I saw was her necklace. Some sort of gold chain with a triangle-shaped charm, with a glass or crystal or diamond-like center. And she continued to sing, "Give me back my face." I didn't know what to do. So I screamed, "I don't have your face." And before I knew it, she started yelling. A frightening yelling. She was now yelling, "Give me back my face." And so I turned around and ran. And the same thing happened. I didn't go anywhere. But this time, there was no faceless woman standing by me. All that was left was a dusty, scratched up, infested ring on the floor that I had not noticed before. It was silver, and it was strong, and had three holes right around the inner side of it, spread evenly. I still have that ring. Story 3. Knights of Columbus. Several months before this incident, my mother had given me a Knights of Columbus ring that had belonged to her grandfather. I had never met him. He had passed on before I was born. I was on vacation in the Adirondack Mountains with my parents, sleeping in an old cabin near a lake. The room I was sleeping in had one window, which was on the opposite side of the room. A tree stood outside of that window, and the wind was causing one of the branches to bump up against the window. Though I knew it was the wind making the tree move, thus making the noise, I was still just a little bit spooked. So I had my father sleep in the same room with me. I was terrified. It sounded like somebody was walking around our cabin, and I was convinced that there was someone out there. This kept me from sleeping most of the night. Around 3 a.m., I woke up from a fitful nap, terrified. Then something caught my eye. At the foot of the other bed, my father was sound asleep, and as I looked towards the foot of his bed, I saw an older man. Instantly I was calm and unafraid. He was wearing a brown and red bathrobe, with a rope belt. He was short, with a very gentle face, and he had in his hands what looked like a small bag. He was looking through it for something, which I knew, somehow, that it was a ring. And then he turned and looked at me, and he smiled. After that, I drifted off into a very peaceful sleep. The next morning, I told my mother the story. At the time, she just listened. When we arrived back home, she took out 4 very old pictures of men who all looked somewhat similar and asked me if I'd seen any of them. I had. One of the pictures was of the old man that had been in the room with me that night. It was my great-grandfather. I knew then that what he was looking for was his Knights of Columbus ring, and that he was there to let me know that he wanted me to have it. I keep his ring with me always, and I know that he is with me, protecting me. Story 4. That Door. My father loved the state of Maine. Not enough, however, to give up his cush job in Boston to live on the going wage of a down-easter. So every summer, from the mid-50s until I reached high school, we would vacation on the scenic Maine coast. Very seldom would we stay in the same place twice. Usually it was some remote cottage located on the outskirts of some tiny coastal town. A 2-week ordeal was in store for me, with no TV, no friends to speak of. To keep me sane, my mother would buy me comic books and play board games with me long into the night. We had been at this cottage now for about 10 days, and I was counting the hours until we would leave. It was a chilly August night, and dear old Dad had a few too many and drifted off to bed. Our terrier, Joe, was snoozing on the carpet in front of the fireplace, and through the big picture window, the surf was like something out of the South Pacific movie. The waves were gently breaking on the rocky shore, not 20 yards from the cottage. The only sound was the revelry coming from a cruise ship that was passing by off the point. In summary, the night was calm. Suddenly, Joe jumped to his feet with his hackles up and growled at the door. I yelled at the dog to be quiet, as he was interrupting our card game. In an instant, the front door blew open with a bang and hit the interior wall. Needless to say, there was nothing there. Joe cowered, and my mother's hair moved like it had been ruffled by some invisible breeze. The playing cards scattered about, and before we could take a breath, the door slammed shut, and Joe, he went back to his sleeping position. We decided not to tell my dad, as he wouldn't believe us anyway. A few days later, we were filling up the old Plymouth for our return trip to Boston, and my father started gabbing with the locals about his vacation. With the windows of the car down, we heard every word. "So, where did you stay?" the man asked with a Maine dialect. "Oh, down on the point, at the Jensen Cottage," my dad answered. "Folks around here know that place well," the man said flatly. "They refer to that place as the front door house."